Welcome to Consonare Backstage. Our guest today is Dr. Jason Heald, composer and professor of music at Umpqua Community College. Dr. Heald, you were commissioned to compose a piece of music for the Consonare Chorale, which will have its world premiere coming up very shortly. What is the name of the piece that you composed?
The name of the piece is Sonnet XVII, and it is based upon a poem by Pablo Neruda. And when Georgina first contacted me about the commission, she said that she had this poem that she wanted to have set for the chorale that expressed a lot of sentiments of some of the things that were happening in Oregon, and especially here where I teach at Umpqua Community College. And it was a poem by Pablo Neruda, and so that is where the project started.
Okay, and then you mentioned with events happening here in Oregon. Could you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Well, on October 1st at Umpqua Community College, we had a shooting in which a student took the lives of both a faculty and other students. And one of the things that transpired in the immediate wake of that was, of course, we continued to rehearse, and we experienced what the power of music was in terms of healing and its therapeutic value and its cathartic value. So this was written at a time in which emotions were very raw, and so this particular text really expressed both the darkness and the joy that and healing that we experienced during this time.
Okay, and then was there a little bit of a shift from where you had first started and then where you moved following this incident?
Well, actually, but the text was picked after the incident, and Georgina picked it.
Okay.
And I thought it was a wonderful choice. I've always liked Pablo Neruda. And so one of the things in looking at the compositional project, and of course the challenges that this presents, and realize that the creative process is all about problem solving. You're presented with a problem, and that creativity is problem solving by definition. So some of the things that as a composer that I would face early on in doing this setting, number one, that obviously I'm not a native Spanish speaker, so I'm reading the text in English. So are you going to set the text in English or set the text in Spanish? Mm-hmm. And so to me, of course, the poet obviously wrote it in Spanish, and it's a lovely language to sing, so that would be the first major decision. Of course, would be to set it in Spanish. Mm-hmm. It seemed to be a no-brainer to me in this case, because it's lovely in that language. And so since I am not a native speaker, I also recruited two students, one who is of Mexican heritage and another from Peru, to both give me readings of the text so that I could nuance this in a way that was appropriate. Again, as a primarily English speaker, that I could nuance it in that way. And so the text itself lends itself to a transition from the darkness of the first half to the more positive outlook of the second half of the text. Mm-hmm.
Had you originally planned on using harp for accompaniment there, or was that added later?
No, again, this was Georgina's request.
Oh, okay.
And which, again, as a composer, all of the parameters and limitations that are presented are the things that are some of the most important things you establish early on. So writing for harp and for choir was a real joy. First thing that we would have a fabulous harpist from Luther College, and Rachel Brandwine, and then of course writing for Consonare Chorale, who I've written for before, to have a fabulous high quality choir and a great conductor, so that you can write more technically challenging things. You can do more divisi, and you can, because you know the technical capabilities of the group, gives you another level to write for. So, but those were things that were established before I even started, that we would have a fine harpist and of course a fine choir, so that gets you off to a good start.
Oh, you bet. Yeah. It's good to know who you're working with and what you're working with.
Sure.
To make it come together.
And no different than writing for a specific instrument or a specific voice, that you know, knowing the voice and knowing the chorale and what they're going to be able to do, that the choir becomes a voice to write for, and every choir might be somewhat different in that way.
Okay. And about how long did it take you to go through this process?
Well, I'm pretty facile in the process, so most of this was probably written within the course of a week, in somewhat fits and starts. But of course, just the structure of the poetry and the imagery, and once the other things were kind of set, in many ways it sort of wrote itself.
Great. So how do you feel once you have completed a composition such as this and you hear it performed for the first time?
Well, one of the things that, as a composer, and also since I do a lot of conducting myself, in fact, I just had this discussion with Georgina a while back, is that that it is very much a collaboration, even though you've put all the notes on the page and the tempos and the dynamics and all those particulars, that that the conductor becomes a collaborator, and a great conductor who steps up and works up a piece when it transcends your own vision for the piece, when it exceeds your expectations. That's always a thrilling moment. That having written a lot, I have a good idea of what the piece is going to sound like. So I'm rarely surprised by the mechanics of the piece, but what the conductor and the choir breathes into the piece is always just a thrilling moment when it's done well and you hear it and it's beyond all your expectations.
Great. Do you have any further comments you'd like to add regarding this piece or the?
Well, no. Other than it's such a privilege to write for such a fine choir and a fine director and fine musicians. So it is truly a privilege to do that and have your work presented in a way that is so expressive, and so it is really pure pleasure to sit in the audience and listen to it.
Very good. Well, thank you, Dr. Heal, for joining us today. We look forward to hearing the world premiere of your music on March the 12th at First Congregational Church in Portland, and that'll be at 7:30. I invite all of you to come and join us, and so until next time, keep a smile on your lips and a song in your heart.